Of course, we have the indictments that came out from Robert Mueller, 13 indictments to the Russians, one extra one for that involves an American. On meddling in the elections, now the National Security Advisor for President Trump, that's General McMaster, says that the evidence is incontrovertible. There's no question that the Russians meddled. And the list of people saying that goes on and filled with Republicans. Chuck Grassley, who's been helping Donald Trump in 1,000 different ways in the Senate, saying it is absolutely clear that the Russians meddled in the elections, and Donald Trump, the next time he sees Putin, should tell him about it and tell him that we're going to take action. Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath, Senator Grassley. But now that it has been proven that there is at least evidence of the Russian meddling, is Donald Trump going to accept that? Is Fox News going to accept that? Well, the answer is partly. This is going to be good. So first of all, Donald Trump would like to do a deflection, and this is particularly grotesque. He says, very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russia collusion with the Trump campaign. There is no collusion. Get back to the basics and make us all proud. That is super gross, to use the Florida shooting for your own personal benefit and to try to end an investigation that might or might not show that you worked in collusion with the Russians, but for you to now attack the FBI using the shooting as an excuse to try to cover up your own potential crimes, it doesn't get any grosser than that. So that is one way that they are trying to deflect blame. Now the second one is the more amusing one, which is to blame Obama, of course. So Trump says, finally, little Adam Schiff, the leaking monster of no control, is now blaming the Obama administration for Russian meddling in the 2016 election. He's finally right about something. Obama was president, knew of the threat and did nothing. Thank you, Adam. So now that is partly true. I think that the Obama administration should have done a lot more. Joe Biden revealed why they didn't just a little while ago, about a month ago or so, when he said they were afraid of what conservatives and Steve Bannon were going to say. That is so sad. So now that doesn't mean that Obama was the person responsible for the Russian meddling or that they did it on behalf of Obama. Obama and his party certainly did not benefit from the Russian meddling. Trump did. That doesn't mean that he collaborated with them, but he's certainly the benefactor of that. Now to turn around and blame Obama exclusively for it is ridiculous to say the least. One more from Trump here. He says, now that Adam Schiff is starting to blame President Obama for Russian meddling in the election, he's probably doing so as yet another excuse that Democrats, led by their fearless leader, crooked Hillary Clinton, lost the 2016 election. But wasn't I a great candidate? That's such a pathetic, weird thing to ask on Twitter. You're already the president. Just let it go, man. Now, I know you can't let the Russian investigation go because they're likely to catch you. But in terms of the election, who won, who lost? You're in the White House. You won. Let it go. Let it go. Yes, she got more votes than you. Yes, they're making excuses. That part I agree with. But he can't let it go that she had got more popular votes and he's still trying to attack Hillary Clinton. And of course, in a roundabout way to say when Hillary and Obama were in charge, some of these guys at the FBI were still here. Let's fire them all. Not because he's worried about Obama or Hillary, but because he's worried about what they're going to find out about him. Of course. So now we are going to go to videos where we show you Sean Hannity weighing. So here's Fox News. Have they also picked up this absurd idea that in fact the Russian meddling is Obama's fault? Let's find out.
This Putin-led operation back in 2009, nobody in the media is telling you, started over years before, a year and a half before the CFIUS board. That's 9 Obama federal agencies, including Hillary as Secretary of State, Eric Holder as Justice, approved the sale of Uranium One. And key players involved in that decision, they should have known all of this was going on, but they approved it anyway. And the real question is, knowing all of this, knowing Putin's efforts in '09, and knowing we didn't have enough uranium in America, why would CFIUS and all these agencies and the Obama administration, why did they allow Russia, a hostile foreign entity, to take control of 20% of our uranium, the foundational material to make nuclear weapons? And we're supposed to be surprised at today's indictments? This that they told you about today goes back to 2014. Where hell was the Obama administration? What did they do then to stop this? Now remember, NBC News reported after the election, the Obama administration didn't do more to stop Russia because they thought Hillary was going to win.
So the Uranium One story he's bringing back from 2009 has nothing to do with the indictments, nothing at all. He's just throwing that in there because Donald Trump loves talking about it and trying to blame Hillary Clinton and Robert Mueller, who was the head of the FBI at that time, so he could fire Mueller. Okay, so 2014, that does have to do with the indictments, and the prosecutors are showing, the special counsel showing, that Russia had plans to meddle in our elections and begun to do so as early as 2014. So why didn't Obama do anything about it? Partly a very good question, as I explained earlier. I think he should have had the courage to not worry about what the Republicans, and ironically what Fox News would say about him. But there is a very literal reason why it got blocked. Not just they're concerned about the right-wing media, but they had a meeting of all the different congressional leaders, and they wanted bipartisanship for them to all come out in unison and say it is unacceptable for the Russians to meddle in our elections. The person who blocked it at the time was Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. He said, no, I will not agree to this bipartisan statement. In other words, he's thought it looks like they're helping my candidate, Donald Trump, so I don't mind the Russians meddling. Mitch McConnell made that decision before the election. He was told about it by the intelligence agencies. Now it is proven that that is exactly what they were doing. And he basically said, not only do I not care, well, since they're helping my candidate, I'm kind of happy with it. So no, I will not put out a statement and I will not support it. And that was a signal to Obama and Biden, you better not do this. Otherwise we'll say you're meddling in the election and trying to throw a curveball. Now, if I was Obama, would I have gone forward anyway? Of course, I don't give a goddamn what Mitch McConnell says. But that's Obama, the whole 8 years, so scared. What is McConnell gonna say? What is Steve Bannon, what is Fox News gonna say? Look, it turns out, you know what they said? Afterwards, they used your own inaction against you. And they blame you for the meddling now because you didn't do it. You made the mistake of listening to them and not doing something about it. How's that for irony? Nah, God, if you're a progressive and Fox News is gonna yell at you, you should be thinking, goddamn right they are. Every day they're not yelling at me, I'm not doing my job. So you got all these comfy senators sitting there. What's Fox News gonna say about it? They're gonna say something about you either way, you morons. All right, anyway, here's one more from Hannity.
Given what we know now, President Obama hit the top members of his administration. They owe you an explanation. Hillary owes you an explanation because what this did is a dereliction of duty. They failed to stop a major national security threat.
Well, how about Trump? He can do something right now. He's the president right now. Again, Sean, I don't know if you got the memo. Hillary didn't win. She's not the president. Obama's no longer president. Trump can do something right now. In fact, it's okay. It's super easy. They already did it. They passed sanctions against Russia for this meddling. Oh, but Trump has blocked the sanctions even though he signed the bill. He won't enforce them. Gee, I wonder why. Is it because he benefited from the Russian meddling and was super happy about it and is Putin's boy and Trump will criticize everyone on the planet with one notable exception. When it comes to Vladimir, he's on his hands and knees. Oh, Vlad, what do you need? What do you need? Criticize him, check him, protect our elections. No way, he's never done anything about it. Which brings me back to Donald Trump and another one of his tweets. He said, I never said Russia did not meddle in the election. I said it may be Russia or China or another country or group. It may be a 400-pound genius sitting in bed and playing with his computer. The Russian hoax was that Trump campaign colluded with Russia. It never did. Okay, is that true? Well, to be fair to Trump, he just says he didn't collude with the Russians. He didn't say that they didn't meddle. That's of course not remotely true. He totally said it over and over again. In one instance, he was asked whether he believes the Russians interfered in the election. Quote, I don't believe it. I don't believe they interfered. How's that for crystal clear? Liar, okay? And then later, in the middle of last year, he put out this tweet. Get a load of this. Putin and I discussed forming an impenetrable cybersecurity unit so that election hacking and many other negative things will be guarded. After that tweet, all of the national security officials, including the Trump administration own handpicked guys, had to come out and go, no, we will not be working with the Russians on cybersecurity. They're the ones penetrating our cybersecurity. We're not gonna give them the keys to our cybersecurity. Are you freaking nuts? He's not nuts, he's corrupt. He was gonna give Putin an ability to, he was just gonna hand him the keys to the kingdom, say, oh yeah, let's do cybersecurity together. And then now he has the temerity to claim, is it in his infinite set of lies, oh, I never said that there was no interference by the Russians in the election. All right, if you're still not convinced, here's Donald Trump himself.
I think it was very obvious to everybody. I believe that President Putin really feels, and he feels strongly, that he did not meddle in our election.
Oh, Putin feels strongly about it. He strongly denies it. Huh, well, you look at that. Well, then I guess it must be true, right? Now he turns around and says, oh, no, I never said they didn't interfere. When asked if they interfered, you said, I talked to Putin and Putin strongly denies it. Maybe we'll work on cybersecurity together. How much money do you owe the guy? What kind of tapes does he have on you? Oh, but you're not working for us. This is gross. And for these guys, for Trump and Hannity to now turn around and ironically blame Obama for not checking the Republicans enough as they apparently colluded with the Russians during the election, and we're happy to do it. Now that is irony on top of irony. If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
Oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.